All right, guys. So first I want to start off this video by saying I apologize to Weaver Beats. Yes, it sounds crazy. It sounds insane. It sounds like I've been taken over by some kind of other spirit. But truthfully, what I mean is I apologize to Weaver Beats because I've held him in high critique. I've said things about him, calling him all types of things from a demon all the way to, you guys can name it, a destroyer. Now, in those moments of time, I was very convicted about my beliefs and I used factual evidence to back up my stance. Truthfully, I think Weaver Beats has some intent to actually protect the producer community. And for that, I got to honor him because from his heart, he's trying to defend against what we see as outside threats. So everybody sees a different threat differently, okay, or sees things as threats differently. But at first, I want to start this video off by saying I apologize to Weaver Beats. I've, dragged his name through the mud multiple times. Now, was it the greatest response? No, and that's why I'm making this video. Does it mean that I agree with everything he puts out? No. I want to make a stance to say this. And to Curtis King, I apologize to Curtis King as well, because he believes as well that I've, brought his name down and dragged it through the mud. Okay, so from everybody's perspective, everybody's attacking everybody. We all believe that we're coming from truth. I don't think anybody is doing stuff out of non-truth, meaning for their truth. Okay, and that's what I had to realize is that somebody may have a contrarian opinion. It doesn't mean that it's negative. It's just different from my perspective. So let me try to step in their shoes and see what they see. Now, if they're missing information, let me give them the information and they can rejudge that scenario. It doesn't mean it's my job, however, to convince people, to go with my point of view. Okay, so always understand as this producer community, as we see stuff budding out into the producer community, these conversations, just understand that everything does not have to be one point of view. I think the beauty of diversity is that we have differences. If everybody just thought the same, we'd just be doing the same thing. It wouldn't be a variety. So I want to start there because there's a lot of conversation around Bolo versus Weaver and Weaver exposing openbeat.ai and then Weaver exposing sampla.ai. So let me give you guys a little backstory, not too much backstory because I don't want to rehash the past in a negative way. I'm just giving this as a timestamp so you guys can comprehend where I'm coming from. So Weaver Beats, when he put out his video about OpenBeat and the content creators behind it, that was massive to everybody. And not because it exposed people or did this, it showed something that the people who made the videos didn't even know. And shout out to the people who helped Weaver Beats. Forgive me, I should know your names off the top of my head, but forgive me, you emailed me and I want to thank you because you guys uncovered something that none of us knew, okay? And at that point in time, excuse me, they found out that, I think it was openbeat.ai was using Suno under the hood, but they were saying that they were using something else and it became this whole convoluted thing. And basically the consumers got deceived and the content creators got deceived. So when Weaver Beats made that initial video, they were addressing the deception. Okay, because there was true deception. Okay, it was deception to the consumer and deception to the content creators who believed that they were doing one thing, but they were doing something else. Nobody knew until those science geniuses went under the hood and looked at the actual code. So we didn't have that skill set to know that. So thank you for them. That was critical because it changed the conversation. It made us really address audio companies and how they interface with music producers in our community. And that was a critical conversation because now we have to show these audio companies they can't just keep manipulating us to do what they want. That was actually better for the producer community, in my opinion, for Weaver to make that video because it took a stance as a community to show that just because these audio companies are offering money does not mean they're allowed to just push whatever in our community. So that was a pivotal video. Now, I think here's where the confusion came into play. Just my perspective. Okay, you guys can have counterpoints in the comments. I think the confusion came into play when a Bolo and an Ab McCree got the information about the under the hood science of how openbeat.ai was working. Now, once they have that science and that understanding, it's up to them if they want to push it further or if they want to work with that company further. It's up to the content creator to decide that. Once all we asked as consumers was to bring us transparency. And once we had true transparency, that's all that company had to do to resolve the conflict. Conflict shouldn't stay a conflict. If you have a conflict, your job is to resolve the conflict, not have a forever conflict. That's why I'm making this video with Weaver Beats. I'm not trying to have a forever conflict with Weaver Beats. We may disagree. We may have polar rising points of view. I may say that he's omitting facts, sometimes on purpose, sometimes just he doesn't know he's omitting facts. regardless, it doesn't mean I want to destroy this person. Okay. Because ultimately we serve different functions in the producer community. So the same with Curtis King. He may be omitting a ton of facts, maybe skewing a whole different narrative, but ultimately at the end of the day, if people are truly seeking truth, they'll seek both sides. So it doesn't matter what people truly say. And, I have to forgive these people and apologize as well. So it's not just on them, it's on myself as well, because I participated in the back and forth. Okay. So that's why I'm apologizing. I don't want to be going back and forth in the frame of mudslinging. Now, if it's the frame of trying to find the truth of a matter, then yeah, people can go back and forth. Meaning, for example, there's a huge debate about AI music right now, and if it's ethical or not ethical. Now, I was willing to go live with the DJ Payne one. He declined at the time because he said fundamentally it's there's no debate. So I offered that to him and to anybody else who, will have a good conversation around it, just so we can really pinpoint where are people truly deciding that something is ethical or not ethical. Because I think there needs to be a conversation about it. I can make a lot of points as to why, I can think of the other party's point of view and make more points against that using their point of view. So that was just a little side thing. But the goal of that conversation was to find the truth, not to mudsling DJ Payne 1 and to mudsling everybody. So long story short, going back in time, when Weaver Beats made the initial video about openbeat.ai, that was a pivotal video for the entire producer community, whether you were in the fire or whether you weren't in the fire. I think that was a huge pivotal point because, again, we all benefited because the audio companies see us differently now, in my opinion. And it made us aware of how we deal with audio companies as a community. So I think that video had to be made. Now, the second video, personally speaking, from my personal opinion, that Weaver dropped about sampla.ai, I think he's trying to continue the battle against the producer community being, defected. However, when openbeat.ai offered transparency, that was the solution to the conflict. Once they offered transparency and let the people off the hook, when they apologized and said that these people didn't know we weren't using this under the hood and all this, that's all they had to do. So now moving forward, if they know of this information, we're not going to keep going to the past and saying, see what you did in the past. If you correct something, sorry, my Wi-Fi is like glitching, so my camera just does weird stuff. Okay. So long story short is, think about the Bible, for example. I think it was Jesus. Forgive me, y'all. It's been a minute since I read this story. But he caught a woman committing adultery against her husband. And Jesus caught them doing it. So basically the point was, like, moving forward, don't do that again. That was the lesson. Don't do that again. Meaning, now that you're aware of something that's causing conflict in the community, don't continue to do the behavior, because now if you continue to do the behavior after you're aware, there's no longer this unconscious, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. It's a knowingness now. And if you have intent to do those negative things in the Bible that they described on purpose, then you deserve whatever consequence comes with that. So the same thing with this producer community. I think Weaver thinks from that mindset is like, look, they were made aware that this company and this person behind the scenes, this business person, operates one way. So if they continue to operate in that way, then they're open for consequence. But however, I think what he's missing is that we've gotten what we asked for, which is transparency, and to, absolve these leaders from scrutiny of the audience, because they didn't even know what they were pushing at that specific time. Okay. So, and again, there was a real reason they believed that stuff was ethical. It's because, Evan Groves, who runs Studio Linked, sold off an asset to N Music. And we all thought, because he was associated with N Music, that, oh, maybe they train this AI on all of N Music stuff. N Music owns Moog, Akai, Alesis. I'm going blank. Newmark, I want to say. I might be making that. Let me check. All right, so here it says they own Air, Akai, Alesis, Alto, BFD. I don't know what that is. Dean and DJ, Engine, Headrush, Ion, M Audio, Mixmeister, Moog, Newmark, Rain, Sonovox. So Stanton, a lot of companies. And so if you're, basically Evan Groves, who did the deal, which is it's public information on Google. Okay, I didn't know that was made public. But long story short, if a person like that does a deal with M Music, sells off their product, you would think they're in good standing with M Music, and you would think that we're extending trust from M Music when he comes to us, Bolo, Av McCree, Larry O. He even came to myself, DJ Payne 1, about this. What was it? This OpenBeat AI. You would think because he's done a deal with M Music that he's still associated with M Music. And so all of our heads, we're thinking, oh, he trained this. They must have trained this off of everything M Music has. That's how it sounds different. Because if you guys remember, openbeat AI initially didn't sound like Suno. It didn't sound like, the stuff that we were used to. It had a different, it sounded almost like the AI was creating MIDI to then run through synthesizers, and then that's what it printed. That's what it sounded like to my ears. It sounded very like they were taking sounds from an Akai or something. So in my head, I go, oh, that's probably where he's getting this from. So when Weaver brings up the point that, it takes hundreds and millions of songs to train on, he's making a point. However, I don't think he had the information that Evan Groves was tied to M Music. And so all of us content creators behind the scenes knew of that. So we're extending our trust because he's done a deal with M Music, but we were all bamboozled behind the scenes, according to Weaver Beats' investigation on OpenBeat. So which required a lot of technical information. You need to go into the inspector tool into your browser and know code and all this stuff. The average person would not know how to do that. You would have to hire an investigator to find that out. So, we all took accountability, including myself. I apologize for openbeat.ai. Okay. Even though I wasn't like a main person, I didn't get paid for it, but I still apologize, because if somebody believed that they were buying, like I said, organic steak, but it was really regular steak, then, the consumer needs to know which is which, because it wasn't just that was confusing to the consumer. It was not told truthfully to us. Okay. Now, whether you eat organic steak or not eat organic steak is up to you. But when somebody says one thing, but it's not that thing, that's deception. Okay. It's not about ethics of eating steak. It's about deception. And that's what, Weaver Beats brought up. And again, we're not here to beat up beat up openbeat.ai. We're not here to beat them up. They've already become transparent. So that conflict has resolved, hopefully, with the community. Now, customers who claim they didn't get a refund, for people to report on people not getting a refund, you have to then go to that customer that said they never got a refund and show the email thread. My request to, what people call investigative journalism, you need to show more receipts, because making allegations without receipts is the same thing as going to court with no facts. Okay. And so Weaver Beats, I think this is a critique to him. This is not that I hate the man. I'm apologizing to him. I'm forgiving him in many reasons. One, feedback to him is that he needs to provide receipts. You can't go after a company and say, oh, somebody in the chat said they never got the refund. Where's the email that said they never got the refund? Where's this unanswered email? You got to show facts, because everything should be traced. If it's a digital transaction, there's a trace of it. There's no like, hey, I called Evan on the phone and he never gave me my refund. No, it's chances are they emailed the company, which means there's a chain, there's a receipt there. So we need to start presenting receipts and less accusations, because again, these people his crusade seems to be that, moving forward, because OpenBeat never gave, they say Weaver Beats, I think said that they never gave refunds or something like that. If that's the accusation you make Weaver Beats, you need to prove receipts, because moving forward to Sampla, you can't take that same argument over to Sampla saying they'll never provide refunds. Okay. Because you never proved it in the first place. So there's a lot of like, it's almost like when you put medicine in a brownie, but it's not medicine. It's something else. So it's like, yeah, the brownie's tasty, but it's not 100% truth. And that's what I hope we can move forward towards as a community, is to seek truth. Okay. I have my point of view. Curtis King has his point of view. Weaver Beats has his point of view. Av McCree has his point of view. Bola has his point of view. Line up the facts. And then ultimately, not only the opinion of the point of view, line up the actual facts. What is the on paper receipt? What has actually been said? What has actually been promoted? Then we can align the whole thing as a group and say, okay, here's how we can now make a more prudent decision, instead of people just going on witch hunts, which I think Weaver Beats, I think he doesn't understand that this is how it appears he's going about the Sampla video against Bolo and all these people. To us, it looks like he's just going on a witch hunt, because what's the deception here? They already came clean about OpenBeat AI that it had parts of Suno in it. So now that they came clean, we know what we're buying now. They're not promoting it as organic steak. Okay. Now Weaver Beats claims, now he's questioning Murica, which that wasn't in question before. So basically, I guess what I'm saying is his argument didn't have as much of a firm stance this time around. So now it just looks like he's just going after character. Okay. Which is up to him if he wants to do. But like I said, if you're going to do something like that, have receipts and have facts, because his argument wasn't as strong this time around. Because again, he's basing it off of what's the major scandal here. If somebody's being transparent saying that, They're using all these models behind the scenes. What's like, if you guys understand digital business, maybe people just don't understand digital businesses. A lot of these companies are run off of APIs. Your favorite interface like Higgsfield, like file.ai for AI stuff. They don't create the actual product. They created the dashboard for you to access the API of these companies, and they just take a little middleman fee. Okay, so companies exist like this in tech all over the place. I can name a social media management tool that doesn't actually have its own proprietary code. It's just the wrapper for the code. But you guys who don't develop may not understand that. So that's a business model. That's not something that's a scandal, is that you can go to Marika by yourself. The whole point of Marika is that you can train your own model and create your own branch. And that's what I think the company sampla.ai is creating. Now, am I going to make videos on it? I personally like Suno, and I like the sound of it. And I think Suno is way, way, way ahead with their new features. So that's just personally what I like as a taste. Now, if other people like, who was it, Arsonist or Ski Beats, I think, if people like that want to use it to find samples, then that's the thing they want to use. It's like telling us we have to use Toxic Biohazard to make beats, or else we're not making real beats. It's like there's other plugins out there. You don't have to use one plugin. So again, we could have an ethical AI conversation for anybody, any content creator who wants to go live. Weaver Beats, Av McCree, Bolo. I don't even know who people, or Curtis King, whoever wants to go live and just have a, what is it called? Societal. That's not the word I'm looking for. Civil. Have a civil conversation about the ethics of AI. I will bring up the science. I'll bring up papers. I will explain diffusion models. I'll explain autoregressive technology. I'll explain how it's synthetic. It takes Gaussian blurry noise, okay, and chisels out resonance from that, which means it's not copying files and pasting, which most people think AI is doing. But that's a whole different video. We could do that a separate time. But that's an open invitation to anybody who is, or even DJ Payne wanted, but he already declined. So anybody who's in our space who wants to talk about the ethics of AI and just have a civil conversation, we could both live stream, you on your channel, me on my channel. We could just talk about it and just see where are people really hung up about the ethics of AI. Because I think people just don't have enough information, personally speaking. But I'm not here to persuade you to understand AI. It's either I'm going to use it or you just don't use it. That's fine. There's no harm, no foul. So I want to show you guys another thing about, this rhetoric about the producer community. What's the word they used? Falling or something like that, or failing. I forget the exact word they use. Collapsing might be the word. So for example, let's hop in our Discord, because people say the producer community doesn't exist. Well, our Discord, this is where we share information. This is where we live stream. This is where we have beat battles, song feedback. This is where we have a bunch of free downloads, loops, all types of opportunities. I think I counted 75 placement opportunities in a month and a half. Shout out to our partnership with Beat Matchmaker. Okay. So a lot of activity in here. We have 129,365,000 members on our Discord. We're the fastest growing Discord for music production. We're almost number one. We're like 400 people from number one. So I can't wait to become number one, because we're definitely going to celebrate that, because it took about 3 years to get here. And, it's been a grind, but we're here to stay and add value. So when people say the producer community doesn't exist, but then we have a whole, basically a producer city of hundreds, 100-something thousand folks in it. And then also we have a growing community on YouTube. And if I'm using my numbers because I can show you guys the accuracy, the other channels, I can't show you their stats behind the scenes. So I'm using me as an example. So for example, this month, we wouldn't have a million long form views and 1.4 million short form views, because YouTube is now pushing us to more and more people. Shout out to YouTube. YouTube is the greatest platform, in my opinion, for the producer community. This is why the majority of my conversation revolves around YouTube. If I told you guys Instagram, when it was 2020, everybody was getting paid for their post on Instagram. It was a cool little bonus, but then they took it away. See, they trick you. They lure you in, and then they take it away. TikTok, they lure you in, give you all these views, make you think you're growing this huge audience, and then they just take it away when they get acquired by, some branch of corporation. Whereas YouTube has been steady for years and years and years and years. You know why? It's because Google owns the internet. So why not just go to the people who own the internet? I think they'll have a decent time. Whereas the other platforms are fighting for the scraps. And that's why I don't put my trust in those other platforms. I'm not saying they won't be good building a TikTok. It's very hard to monetize on Instagram. You basically have to have your own product, your own funnel. You have to do a lot to monetize on Instagram. You can't just monetize the content. TikTok, I don't know if you can monetize content. I'm not quite sure. So I don't want to speak on everything about that concept. However, I do know the TikTok shop became a thing. which talk about shilling. Okay. You got people talking about deodorant that they never would have talked about because of the TikTok affiliate. So it's, I just think that the opportunity to make money skewed a lot of the content towards stuff that they would never even be talking about anyway. That's my personal opinion. And when it came to YouTube, people came here to receive content, long form podcast, documentaries, live streams. YouTube has real content. Okay. I think the other platforms are just fighting to be relevant and, somewhat against YouTube so that they get the counter traffic. But long story short, this channel got 2.4 million views because of you. Okay. Because the community is growing. And, so that's 1.1 million views long form and then 1.4 million views short form. Let's look at Native Instruments. Now, this is a company in our current zeitgeist. Is that the word? In our current psyche is what I meant to say. So they're getting about 690,000 views in the month. Long form is 666,000 with the shorts at 130,000. Now, this chart doesn't look so good for Native Instruments. This is just a temporary chart. They're a multi-million-dollar company. I'm sure they don't care that much about their YouTube stats. I'm showing you guys these numbers because we could track the numbers. Okay. Now, if we look at the 3-month chart, let's see if it's declining over time. So I'm using a site called ViewStats. Mr. Beast owns this. It's a really, really, really good site because Social Blade does not differentiate between views, long form, and short form, whereas ViewStats does. Okay, so I don't know why this chart is not loading. So it looks like a decline in that case for the quarter. Okay, so let's go to Arturia's chart. Now, Arturia had crazy numbers before because I think they were running a heavy promotion. But now we can see their long form views are 273,000. Short form is 550,000. So they're totaling about 800,000. Now, this is a company that has a multi-million-dollar asset called Analog Lab and their keyboards. So I guess my point is, if content creators are outperforming, okay, and I'm just using me as an example because I know for sure my numbers, if we're outperforming these multi-million-dollar companies, don't you think something's up with the companies? I don't think something's up with the content creators. I think something's up with the companies, because how's the company that has a multi-million-dollar budget not outperforming a simple YouTuber? And that's what we have to realize as a producer community, is how valuable we are to resonate with our audience. Our audience trusts us. And then if I saw you in person, I wouldn't call you my audience. I call you by your first name. But I guess my point is, we have an obligation, whether we want to or not, to lead people towards their desired outcomes. Now, I can understand a Bolo when he says that, like, he just covers stuff, and if you like it, you like it. It's like a video game show, like IGN, for example. They might not like the new DS game that came out, but they're going to talk about it. And if you like it, then you go buy it. Now, what IGN might do is rate the new DS game, but they're not going to say they're not going to endorse it. They're just going to say, here's the rating we give it. What do you guys think? So I can see Bolo's point of view. He's like, look, I'm IGN of the music producer community. The companies give me stuff. I tell you guys about it. It gets you excited because now you probably want to grab the stuff. And, the companies get their word out, which is a win-win. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Like, for example, I forgot who said it, but somebody was like, content creators make videos about stuff that they normally wouldn't use. But in real life, if you think about Yamaha HS8s, were they really popping before a certain producer wanted them? Like, were the NS10s popping back then, or were they deemed as crappy speakers? But now we want to use crappy speakers. Was Toxic Biohazard really reveled back in the day? Or was it just one of those obscure things that we refound and it became popular? So I think what I'm trying to say is, just because we deem something negative or bad now doesn't mean that people can't use it. I've seen people use bad stuff and make amazing stuff. So to limit people in music is almost saying there's only one way to make music, and I just don't think that's true. So here we have Native Instruments. Again, their chart is at 690 for the month. Arturia is at 800,000. So Bolo's sitting at 700 something thousand views in the month. His long form views is 470,000. So compare that again to a multi-million-dollar company, Arturia. So Bolo's traffic that he generates from his trust and his, perspective is almost double that of Arturia. And I'm only using one platform because we can measure here. I'm not trying to make this a D-swinging contest. I'm trying to use numbers to help you guys understand our power as a producer community. Okay, these companies can't even generate the numbers themselves. Their subscribers are around 2,000 a month. Native Instruments says 1K a month. We generated well over 80,000 subscribers in 1 month. Okay, Bolo is sitting at 2K subscribers in the month, And again, his long form is almost double that of Arturia. Okay, so just so you guys can understand where we, create our perspectives. Now, Curtis King, for example, his channel says 678,000 views. As you guys know, he pivoted from producer content to more commentary on the music industry. It says his subscribers are at 1,000 or less. And then it says his long form is at 393,000. So I think that's, let me see where that's comparatively. So he's about half of NI and then just above Arteria in that case. Now, Weaver Beats, his charts always look weird on the screen, so I'm not sure this is 100% accurate. So we're not going to say this 100% accurate because the chart data looks very ambiguous. But it says his channel gets 260,000 views in the month. And it says he's sub 1,000 subscribers, and then his long form is 260,000 views. So we can kind of see people's trust factor based on the subscriber count, in my opinion. That's how people show their trust. Do they trust you to lead them to a desired outcome? That's usually what subscribers means. Okay. Ab McCree is sitting at 491,000 views in the month, and then long form 262,000. So again, is that above Arturia? That's just right there with Arturia. So you guys can see we are greatly outperforming these companies in our, our influence over what we say. Now, does it mean we're the, end all be all? No. I just want to say that we have a lot more power than what it is perceived to be. So when people say the producer community is just falling apart, I'm like, where? Not like a majority of these people are outperforming the multi-million-dollar audio companies that, are trying to talk to our audience. And by audience, again, I'm just saying audience because that's the word. But if we saw you guys in person, I would give y'all a hug. It's just like that. I would not call you audience in real life. And it's definitely not my audience or Av's audience or Bolo's audience or Weaver. It's a shared audience. There's no one person owning audience. That doesn't make sense. Now, you may trust certain people more or less. Okay. Now, Ron got the recipe. Okay. He's sitting at 50K in the month, at least according to view stats. Because I know he makes videos about Weaver Beats and Bolo. I watched his recent video. And we have Splice. Now, Splice is I think they're worth $500 million. Okay. Now I know for sure they're running campaigns. So a lot of this, is campaign driven, but it says this Splice. Now this is you would never expect Splice. Splice has 3.73 million views in the month, but then down here it says 4 million views. And then it says 120,000 short form. So, but these spikes, I can tell that, this is probably heavily promoted. They are using their budget to promote on YouTube. That's how I can tell the difference between a Splice and something like an Arturia. Now, months ago, when Arturia dropped their keyboard, I forget what it's called, not the Key Lab, but like the spacey looking keyboard, I think they put promotion on YouTube because, let me show you guys. Hold on. Because if you look at this chart, this video where they launched their Astrolab, that's what it's called. So when they launched their Astrolab, the views were up at like 1 million views in a month, and then it just sharply went down, which lets me know either they don't have a sustainable content marketing strategy or they promoted something in a short amount of time. Okay, that's what it tells me. But again, hopefully what I'm trying to show you guys is the hope to understand, especially Rick Beato, this man, if you guys want an example of the amount of attention we can get as producers if we just work together, this man has figured out the code. Now, the difference in his brand, he talks about greater macro market stuff like guitars. He's older, so he can resonate with the older audience that likes to play guitar still. And chances are those people are not using FL Studio. Now, he also covers a lot of like Billboard top this and top that, but he's an expert at what he does. He's an expert in music theory. He's an expert at playing these instruments, and he brings in the, likeness of all these different people for interviews. So he is a difference because one, he's in a whole different market, but I'm using him as an example to show how popular music production is. People do want to learn how it was made, the stories behind this stuff, because they want to get skilled at it. And I think this is also my point of view when it comes to AI music. People are like, AI music's going to destroy everything. I'm going, no, it's just making more people aware and believe that they can make music. Remember when the pandemic hit, everybody wanted FL, everybody wanted Ableton, everybody wanted this stuff because they naturally want to make music, but they don't know how, they don't have the time. So imagine AI now gets them truly wanting to make music, and they get more confident in making music, and they go, okay, now I want to learn how to actually do my own music. That's how we all start. I didn't make my beats initially. I was using Hipstrumentals beats, their mixtapes. and all the like, you know, remix beats. And then once I learned how to make beats, I was addicted. And that's the same path I could see for people who are using AI tools to make music. They're going to eventually want to create their own music because that's the joy of it, is creating it. And so I think those same people are going to enter into our space, and we need to, instead of fighting them, like, we need to understand how they think and then embrace them and then help them, because that's how we all benefit. Why try to keep people down and gatekeep and then complain when we don't, when we don't get a placement because of the industry gatekeeping? It doesn't make sense. You can't gatekeep and then not want to be gatekept. It doesn't work that way. So I guess my final thoughts is to show you guys the back end, because this, I want to compare. Okay, so it looks like view stats is a little off. Looks like we're actually getting more subscribers. I think it was 93K last month. So now this is 92K. Okay, and then 2.6 million views. And let's go to content to make sure for sure the numbers are right. So long form, we're looking at I don't know the math on this, 1.3, is that right? 1.03 million views. I don't know the math. So it's 1.03, I think, million long form, and then 1.5 short form. So that, I think, is accurate in that case. Let me go back. Yeah, 1.1 and then 1.4. Okay, is accurate there. So I'm just double checking to make sure these numbers actually, because I don't have everybody else's numbers. So I want to show you guys that yes, we are evolving. And yes, we're here to serve the producer community, which is just greater than America. I think we just think so soloed and like siloed. We forget that there's a whole big world out there that needs our help. They want to make music. It's up to us to help them make the music. And if we work together, we can all help each other make music. And then we all become the cool kids club, and everybody wants to be like us. That's how the, you know, world works. There's no benefit in trying to stop people from making music. All you're doing is making music less popular and important, okay? In my opinion. So what are the takeaways from this video? The takeaway is let people have their opinion. The only thing I ask is for people to present more facts. I think that needs to be a thing. Present more facts. That needs to be a thing. It doesn't mean we all need to agree. Just present more facts. That's it. All right, y'all. Subscribe if you're new. Peace.